I want to introduce some of the faces, some of the voices, and some of the people working in the background today to help us put this webinar together. Joanne Zimmermann is an associate professor at Texas State University and co-chair of the Leisure Management Special Interest Group. Antonio Bramante is a member of the World Leisure Board and an active collaborator with Joanne and me as we organize the Leisure Management Special Interest Group's activities. Patricia Carmo dos Santos is a leisure analyst in Sesc National Office and will be organizing a lot of the Q&A session later in this webinar. Our special guest today is Leonardo Cálix from Sesc Sao Paulo, who will share some of his insights about Sesc Verão, serious leisure and practice. I am John Tower, co-chair of the Leisure Management Special Interest Group and other roles, including an honorary fellow at Victoria University in Melbourne. Before we get started, it is a custom in Australia to pay respect to the traditional owners of the land. I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of this land. I am on Wurundjeri land in the Kulin Nation. I value the culture, relationships to country, kinship connections, and journeys of the first peoples of this land. I pay respect to the traditional elders, past, present, and emerging. Now I'd like to introduce Patricia from Sesc, who wants to welcome you and introduce you to Sesc and what they do in the delivery of leisure experiences.
Thank you, Professor. Good afternoon, everyone. Actually, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, because we are connected to the whole world, and each person is in his or her own time zone. Please welcome everyone to Sesc. I do welcome everyone, and before we talk about Sesc, I'd like to make some acknowledgments. First of all, I'd like to thank the Special Interest Group of Leisure Management, which is directed by Professors John Tower, Joanne Zamosa, and Antonio Bramante. And we at Sesc are members, recent members actually, of that group. I'd like to thank them for inviting us to participate in the series of webinars in 2022 that they're holding. The organizing committee of the World Leisure Organization in Bilbao, I'd like to thank them for welcoming our institution and for convening the second edition of the World Leisure Day together with their excellent center in Vancouver, Canada. The Wendelson Dalboni, leisure director here at the National Department at Sesc, for believing and supporting the realization, the convening of this webinar. Carolina Seixas, the development manager, physical and sports development manager of the regional department of Sesc in Sao Paulo, for welcoming this invitation so that we will get to know this excellent work that they're doing. And my colleague Eduardo Cálix, which is the assistant to the physical and leisure department in Sao Paulo, who was kind enough to actually fit us into his busy agenda so that we may have this chat on Sesc Verão this afternoon. Lastly, last but not least, I'd like to send a warm welcome and a thank you note to the different Sesc hubs and the regional departments. My name is Patricia Carmo. I work in the recreational activity at Sesc, National Sesc. I'm going to ask my colleagues to show us their presentation so we can start talking briefly about Sesc. I'm talking about this site, specifically the leisure management, but within the recreation activity. This is National Sesc Department in Rio de Janeiro. The National Department of Sesc, located in Rio de Janeiro. Keep going, please. What is Sesc? The Sesc is a social service of commerce, and we always like to remind people that our commitment is as big as Brazil. It was founded in 1946. It is upheld by the corporate community which deals in commerce. Our work has a focus on the life quality of commerce workers and goods, services, and tourism and their families. And this work is done based on five main programs: leisure, health, education, culture, and community service. Sesc has 591 operational units overall. Go ahead, please. Structure. What's the structure like? What's it like? The Sesc is organized as we have a national department, which is made up of the national management, where I work, and three reference hubs: the socio-environmental hub in Sesc Pantanal in the state of Mato Grosso, the educational Sesc hub, which is located here in Rio de Janeiro, right next to our national department, and the sociocultural hub, Sesc Paraty, also in the state of Rio de Janeiro. In addition to this structure of the national department, Sesc also has 27 regional departments. Go ahead, please. Just so we'll have a clear idea, this is a picture of our socio-environmental hub, Sesc Pantanal in Mato Grosso state. Next, this is our educational hub, smack in the middle of Rio de Janeiro city. There's just a wall actually separating us from the educational hub at Sesc. And next, and the sociocultural hub in Sesc Paraty, located in this historical city of Paraty in Rio de Janeiro state. Next, to talk about leisure at Sesc. How is it organized? We work around leisure in three activities: recreation, social tourism, and physical and sports development, DFE in Portuguese, and the Portuguese acronym DFE, physical sports development. Sesc thinks of leisure as a time-spatial mix for social investments that has a positive impact on the quality of life of Brazilians, insofar as it contributes also to the reduction of inequalities and overcoming emerging social challenges. This is a bird's eye view of what we do and what we're all about, so that everyone watching us will have a clear idea of what we do. I would like to thank you for participating, and these are my contact details if you want to talk to me about Sesc later on. I'm going to back to you, Professor John Tower, please. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Patricia. I had the pleasure in 2018 of being in Brazil and seeing some of the programs and services that Sesc provide. You are part of a truly phenomenal organization. I've never come across anything like Sesc in other parts of the world, and I really commend the work that you do. It's fantastic, and thank you for sharing a little insight about Sesc with the rest of the world. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Leonardo Cálix. Leonardo has a physical education and sports bachelor's degree and more than 15 years of experience in the field of sports projects and events. He has organized tournaments, campaigns, festivals, and all sorts of physical activity events in the national and international scenario of recreational and participation sports. Today, he's working in the events team of Sesc Sao Paulo and studying a master's degree program in sciences of physical activity at the University of Sao Paulo. Welcome, Leonardo. Before we start the question and answer section, the conversation, just let all of our participants know we have a chat function for anyone in the session to share comments or questions. Joanne is monitoring the English chat, Bramante is monitoring the Portuguese chat, and Patricia will monitor the Spanish chat, and we'll share them with you as we progress or after the conversation. So we do hope that you make comments and ask questions. So I'm going to spend about 15 to 20 minutes now in a conversation with Leonardo, followed by your comments and questions. So let's just so tell me a little bit, Leonardo, thank you for making yourself available. Tell me a little bit about your role with Sesc and the sort of event that you organized with Sesc Verão.
Good morning, John. Good morning. It's 6 in the morning for John exactly, roughly 6 in the morning. Good afternoon, Patricia. Congratulations on the big challenge of defining Sesc in 3 minutes. I'm sure it was a tall order, and everybody who's watching us and following us in three languages. Today, as soon as this content is available, we're going to be able to even talk even further. I work in Sao Paulo currently, as John was saying. I was an instructor in physical activities, and today I'm part of the physical sports development management that we sports management call sports management in Sao Paulo. As one of the assistants to the group, our group is made up of two teams, a nucleus that has permanent activities, sports courses, hydro gym, our gyms with multifunctional exercise routines with yoga sessions and so on. And we also have a campaigns and events groups. And in this group, out of this group and this team, we promote and develop and coordinate some projects that challenges the Move It Week all over South America and Latin America, and they have jumped on the bandwagon. Also, obviously, the World Leisure Day, as we're celebrating today, and the Sesc Round and the Sesc Cup, and with embracing all 45 units of those 591 units that Patricia was telling us about. 45 of them are in the state of Sao Paulo, spread across the state of Sao Paulo.
Okay, so one of the main themes and the things that really intrigues me about Sesc Verao is the fact that you have themes that are a part of the underpin the program. So can you provide some history behind how it impacts on the delivery of the events? And then we'll get looking into the serious leisure side of things.
Cool. Yeah, we have the main projects of Sesc São Paulo. Physical and sports activities are long-standing. They've been going on for a while now. The main ones, the ones that have been in operation in the shortest time, they've been active for over 10 years. What happens? It's constant work. It's ongoing work, and they're very well structured, and they have a unique view, a sole view. We have strategic goals and specific goals, which is to reduce the sedentary way of life in the state and the country and the world through local strategies. We have many specific strategies. The Move It Week, and acting through motivated people in September at institutions, a challenge day with a very interesting dialogue with public entities for 28 years, and Sesc Verão, which normally is the program that carries the most questions and the most topics and themes in its mix of programs. And 27 years ago, it had a double logic, actually, a flow of public audiences at university, January and February, which is in the southern hemisphere. It's our summer season, so many people come to the units. You have the school is out and school recess, and there's a possibility of actually having outdoor activities and indoor activities also to leave our imprint on the community. I'm going to talk about the topics that we've developed in the course of these past few years. We got to 2022 offering over hundreds of free activities, and they cater to over 150,000 people in the whole state of Sao Paulo. We got to the topic leisure taken seriously, which is a topic that inspired our teams and helped us build a hegemonic role in the services that we offer. We're the leaders of this field, actually, in the state of Sao Paulo. Please, John.
Okay, so in 2022, the theme for Sesc Verao was serious leisure. Now, that's a theoretical construct that we in the leisure industry use to try and explain the phenomena of leisure. Can you explain why you chose to pursue the serious leisure theme and how you put that theme into operation with a series of events with thousands of people and lots of different activities and those sorts of things?
Surely, John. I'm going to ask the organizing committee to give me slide. We have 3 slides actually. Slide number 2, that's one. All right, there you go. Slide number 2 to help me out, presenting to you this topic. How did we get there? How we got there? 27-year history. Sesc around topics. I've always had a dialogue with contemporary society on themes that were and are important in our dialogue with the community. The teams are not built only because we like them or because we so wish but they actually are fraught with meaning and content for people and the benefit of people. We've noticed in our research and the history of the event, starting in 1997 over all the way to 2000, our struggle, actually our theme, reduce sedentary way of life, was the leitmotif actually. In 2001 was the cool body was the first theme. We brought some ideas, being the leaders of our own physical activities and leisure, seeking out the body that you want. So we had a strong dialogue platform with society at that time. And those who did the management of sports at the time, we noticed that there was an increase in motivation of the teams and the creation of projects and a dialogue, sort of straightforward dialogue, and actually access to traditional media, TV stations and radio stations, as well as newspapers and so on and so forth. And then we're going to have social media as well. In due time, we had access to social media that are increasingly important. And in 2002, there was a peak of on the term pleasure and practice, seeking out the happy body, if you will, leisure in practice. And we talked about leisure extensively. And we talked about it extensively. This SENAC has always worked on the people's leisure. It's part and parcel of our mission and our value system. But we dealt with leisure in practical terms. Leisure and pleasure behind this practice. In 2004, we came up with a longer theme, which was very interesting in our evolution of these topics. That when I talk about this new mission, was a text based on some academic reflections that dealt with the 2000 forums, Body and the Environment. We talked about the environment and the interactions, and something that is very contemporary even today. In 2006, the topic was based on and inspired by research by a newspaper at the time, but people didn't have time to engage in physical activities. Over 90% at the time answered that time was a bottleneck against physical activities, against them practicing physical activities. In 2009, we had exercise your intelligences, your intellectual abilities. We were inspired by an academic topic. It was nothing new, but it was very interesting actually to have a multifaceted platform. In 2015, 2012, 2015, it was a saga. Sesc was recognized by Datafisa in the previous year as an institution acknowledged by everyone which developed sports for everyone. And directly to 2022, we've brought the legacy of that whole history. We work on, we're inspired by and based on an academic work. We try to bring about a well-built mission, very interesting platform, actually, and we go back, maybe inspired by the 2021 World Leisure Day and the Move It Week. We placed a greater focus on leisure in big capital letters, the importance of taking it seriously and earnest. And we talk about taking leisure seriously. We understand that society, we start thinking of this project in September, October 2021. What does it mean to take it seriously? These words, when looked at together, when considered together, protocols, you have to take physical health and mental health seriously. And whatever time, leisurely time you have with family and friends, and your own time out, actually, which you can enjoy and profit and benefit from. And also, I will just add I will be, I'll be a bit lengthier than I had planned, but we also have a general goal in our sports activities, sports actions at Sesc São Paulo. The general goal is to stimulate and promote and bring people to our sports courses that we believe are very good and very interesting and very relevant to society. Therefore, our goal of the campaign would be exactly to bring the goals of promoting our permanent courses and boosting our programs. We understand that people who take their leisure seriously, inspired by the work of Professor Stebbins, possibly they would stand a greater chance of bringing their active leisure and bring it inside our Sesc São Paulo units, and actually it would be an incentive for them to join our courses too, and that's very important. Thank you. Professor John, please.
That's an amazing history. I mean, to be running something like that and watching it evolve over the decades is a great achievement. So obviously, the fact that you delivered Sesc Viral for 27 years, what kind of evaluation have you built into it so that you can use that information to guide your future development? So can you just tell us a little bit about how you're evaluating the events and activities?
Well, surely, John. All this whole time there's been a quantitative assessment, which is crucial for sure, very important, and despite its imperfections, Joanne and I have been talking about it, and she mentioned that this will, at the end of the day, this is the first assessment item for any project, and the first steps that we take in any project and program. We do the assessment of the number of people engaged and that come into our programs as members, the number of activities that we offer. Interesting data, between 2008 and 2009, there was a peak, and we have doubled the number of activities available and the number of people actually joining us. In addition to 2009 being an important year with a very interesting topic, as Professor Stebbins has noted. There's this question of community service as well, and the division of total investments by the number of people that we cater to, which is our per capita rate. Surely our total investments have been dealt separately, and quantitatively speaking, since the beginning of the pandemic, and a bit before actually, the 2020, for example, because the event takes place in January and February, and the pandemic began. It began in March 2019, 20 actually here in Brazil. We have been taking a pulse of the hashtags, taking tabs on the hashtags. When we did qualitative analysis, actually, we've been talking to coordinators, people who were in a position in the sports, an organizing position in sports departments, who carried out individual conversations and group conversations with the group coordinators and all 45 operational units, and that gave us very important impressions that could serve as benchmarks for us to build the following topics and following events. And also, many times we sent research surveys to gather data and impressions and opinions to participants, but most importantly to coordinators as well. It's a way to so that coordinators could report on the events and salient issues at each event and in every program, and also an analysis that we do in our department. And at least in the past 5 years, we've done an analysis of trends, something that we like to do, observing the programs. For example, in 2022, we had a high number of activities, beach tennis activities, that reproduce something that our society, at least here in the state of São Paulo, has been a phenomenon. Actually, there has been all the rave. People have been engaging in beach tennis quite frequently and basically everywhere. Alternative transport modes, moving around on bikes and roller skates and long walks. And as a specific case in 2022, as a good practice, there's research that will try and make us understand and bring data so that we will understand whether we have been able to achieve the topics and the themes that were presented last year. We brought two main goals last year. One of them was we promoted our permanent courses or sports courses at the units, and the other one was a bit more complex. We assessed quantitatively figures, making sure people would understand this Sesc would take Sesc as a as a social venue. According to Professor Stabbins' analysis, our primary goal had to be assessed quantitatively so we could make sure our programs in January and February actually produced positive results. We had to take tabs on that, to keep tabs on that.
That's amazing because it just demonstrates the breadth and the nature of how Sesc runs your programs to be so efficient and effective, and the infrastructure and the dedication of the people working with you. It just truly amazes me the breadth of what you do with all this. So, what it may be too early to tell, but what have you learned from Sesc 2022? How is that theme of serious leisure impacted, or how will you find out how it's impacted? And do you see any connection between your Sesc Viral, which is a series of events, and its impact on Sesc's other programs and services?
Very good, John. Very good question. We're going to do a more specific, in-depth analysis of data that we got. We got data on last Friday, from all the units. They filled out questionnaires and surveys, but we have some impressions that were quite interesting. We've done normally in the course of the construction of the project, while building the project, we've had two meetings: a topic presentation meeting and an operational issues meeting. And the second meeting, geared to operational issues, could be email messages, or actually we had a presentation meeting from the perspective of serious leisure, which is a meeting that we had with Professor Stabbins, knowing that Professor Stabbins is giving lectures and he is a mastermind of this work, the creator actually of this perspective. And we thought of inviting him to make this presentation with mediation of Professor Ricardo Vinha from São Paulo University, for us to be able to get to Professor Stabbins, and also to ensure the mediation of the program. We had a meeting and we chatted with him. It was a glass actually on his perspective. It was a very interesting point. Also very relevant that we've noticed is that the work by Professor Stabbins, outside the circle of researchers, or some leisure researchers in our country, or some sociologists, sports sociologists, or some leisure theoreticians, it wasn't massified, if you will. Of course, we've always said that this will not be a Bible to be followed blindly, but that will be part and parcel of a wealth of options and alternatives for Sesc, and that will be a source of inspiration for reflections annually by people when creating other programs at Sesc São Paulo. These are two important topics that we often focus on. Another issue is that we used as inspiration this topic, and also very relevant, is to say that we were not going to present actually all of the particularities, if you will, of leisure, from the serious leisure program, to our participants. So when 3 to 5 year old kids came to us, we're not going to tell them, look, wait a second, now this is not casual leisure anymore, this is serious leisure. No, it's not enough to approach them that way. We've had so many chats, so many informal chats that actually led them to reflect on what they were doing. It's a very important point that we could see in other things as well in our history and our programs, that we felt we were very felicitous when we talk about sports in earnest and leisure in earnest, and the importance of protocols and our physical and mental health and the importance thereof, and to take active leisure seriously, we noticed that sometimes, more often than not, in our programs, we didn't have to explain to people the work of their teachers. It was the backdrop of what we did, actually. So people had an idea, general idea of what we were doing.
Fantastic. So it's all part of the learning process, that delivery process, and it's a cycle that you very, very successfully putting in practice. So provided us with foundation to understand Sesc and how you use themes to underpin it. What I'd like to do now is turn over to our participants who may have comments or questions. And I know that there's a team, Joanne, Bramante, and Patricia, have been monitoring the chat. And so I'd like to turn over to them now to see how we go. We've got maybe 15 or so minutes that we can still engage with our audience. So let's see how we go with this part of the program. Everyone is encouraged to make comments and questions.
We're waiting. Please, go ahead. Well, we were looking at the questions from participants, and it's impossible not to feel proud of this project and a regional apartment in Sao Paulo. Congratulations to Leonardo. Thank you for your presentation. There is a question here that reads as follows. Someone noticed that from 1997 to 2000 Sesc Verão didn't have a specific topic or theme, but what they worked on at the time was the reduction of the sedentary way of life. Could you comment on that? How did you guys work at the time? And the program, how did you think about, how did you envision the activities to minimize or even mitigate the sedentary lifestyle of many people that was so rampant at the time? Well, nice. That's a good question. The reduction of the sedentary lifestyle was the proposal behind many campaigns. It's a general goal. It's one of the general objectives. It's the general view of the campaigns to do local work and local actions and activities that could have a global impact, step by step, helping us ensure and build up on that movement. Sesc São Paulo is part of that movement, but so many other institutions worldwide, be it state or public or private institutions, are engaged in this movement to stimulate a healthier lifestyle and physical exercises in general. From 1997 to 2000, we didn't have a specific topic because the project was still consolidating itself. When we read the documents, we noticed that not all units were not all operational units in Sesc São Paulo were part of the event. Surely something was happening when it comes to incentivizing people to engage in physical exercises along the lines of the Sesc's mission for innovative activities and respect for diversity. And I'm just making a list of core missions and core values, but clearly they were all aligned. But nonetheless, there was no active engagement of all units. So what we noticed is that in this process, there was a great deal of convincing to do on the part of units to understand the importance of executing doing networking and doing a work as a network, really, and also the goals the general goals by Sesc, for those who are watching us, to seek the leadership role in our work. So there were good practices and there was a very interesting program going on in January and February for 2 to 3 years, and we noticed that that could be applied directly to each regional unit, which only happened in 2009 effectively. All the way up to 2008 we had events in the greater Sao Paulo metropolitan area and the cities next to Sao Paulo, capital city, and other faraway remote locations that joined us. But nowadays we have events going on in every single unit. That's why we have this capillarity and this ability to propose ideas and to come up with large-scale campaigns endorsed by the media. So the theme, Sesc Verão, these topics, I could talk about other campaigns, but Sesc Verão surely is being advertised in newspapers and TV channels and by the print media and newspapers and broadcast media. I hope I answered your question. Thank you, Leo. That's a good answer. I have two questions. I will group them together. See, the survey questionnaires measured the well-being of participants. That's the second part. That's a question, actually. The second part is, how was the process of collecting quantitative data? How did you do it, actually, on a day-to-day basis? First, the question of well-being, whether you were able to measure it, and how you gathered quantitative data. Well, our research related to the quality of life focused on understanding the experience. In this research study, there's another issue here. We cannot make it so big. It cannot be huge, especially because, as we're doing for the World Leisure Day with participating entities, all the units that we have surveys that will go straight to the participants. We'll try to be very focused in our questions to try to find out exactly what we're looking for, to seek out the specific answers and the positive results of our sports and leisure activities. We understand that these activities had a positive impact on greater chances of success of people actually engaging in physical activities in the long haul for the so we understand that that is implicit. So yes, we're going to be able to assess the data more substantially, but this well-being, this experience, whether the experience was successful and the well-being of participants was ensured. What was the second part of the question? How do you raise the data? How do you gather the data quantitatively? We have some tools, internal tools that help us out on that front. We have a development management that helps us. We use the BI to get all the data available to us. In very simplistic ways, in a macro look, if you will, the units that develop activities independently, we help them out with technical issues and the question of freeing up financial resources whenever needed, and those projects they fit into a systemic view of the whole thing. So in 2020, for example, we had an event before the pandemic, 1,500 programs. But it began in January. They went all the way to the end of February. This year, we have 38 days in duration, half the duration. We had half the number of programs, about 800. Systemically, we can, since the units are pieces in that program, the units have the number of people that they cater to, that join them. So we have this Microsoft BR that helps us bring the data that will lead us to this total number of 150,000 people. We do a bird's eye view of the number of times hashtags were worked on, and at Sesc Verão, traditionally we have a press department that we hire, and they're very helpful on many fronts, on many work fronts. Among them, they do clippings, and they bring to us all the recurrent instances of Sesc on the media and all media channels. So we have very solid data on how many times we've been featured on the media in general, and that's a very simplistic way. In a very simplistic fashion, that's how we've been dealing with the issue of quantitative analysis. Great, thank you so much, Leo. And for us to round up our Q&A, there's one more question. When we promote events, punctual events, there's always a perspective that these are interrelated in the community where they're being developed as part and parcel of a more widespread public policy. Have you had any experiences in any municipality or in any town that has incorporated Sesc as part of a widespread leisure activity? Yes, we've had experiences in programming that are quite interesting at Sesc and beyond. It turns out that many programs begin at Sesc but they don't end at Sesc. They can be dealt with actually as public policy initiatives. Many times sports departments, municipal departments in the whole town, actually, they become partners and they help us out. And we've had many programs. I can make you a long list. One of them, actually, I won't be fair with everyone, but I'm going to highlight one example it's São José dos Campos in the São Paulo countryside, an hour and a half away from São Paulo. They had a program on leisure and territories and barriers and leisure in periphery areas. They invited 20 community leaders that took part and through the mediation of a teacher, an invited teacher, a guest teacher. They had a course in which they held conversations and chats, and these conversations were brought together in a program at São José dos Campos, Sesc, as one more program in World Leisure Day. Such was the wealth of data collected and experiences witnessed by everyone. So these leaders will have an impactful event, actually 2 events. The group was divided up in 2 leadership groups, and they'll be acting on effectively applying all the knowledge and creating a program which will make a difference, actually, in the region where they live. Really, I'm bringing you an example, really, so you'll know how this process unfolds. We have many other campaigns, like the Challenge Day, but surely I'm not being fair with programs that are taking place in Heliopolis, other shanty towns, or mediated by Sesc Ipiranga and so many other institutes. Yes, I can well see that when you comment on this wealth of undertakings and achievements, I can see the sparkle in your eye as you talk about these programs and projects. I'm gonna then ask you to make your final remarks, and you will give the floor back to Professor John Tower so he may close today's activity. Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Leonardo. Well, thank you, Patricia. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. A big thank you to everyone who was watching us at our event and who will be watching us later. We're very happy to get the invitation. This is not the work by Leonardo specifically or by the campaign group. It's the work by the 45 units and there's sports departments and there's hundreds of people working on creating programs, sports programs, and teaching classes. This is not an isolated work by anyone in particular. It's been successful exactly because it's a joint effort. We believe in the validity of this program, of this project, because it is the sum total of so many people coming together to make a difference, and they know how important they are. So that's basically it. Thank you so much to the members of my team that allowed me to be here today and to made me available and gave me so much input to talk about these wonderful projects. Thank you so much.
Well, this is fantastic, and thank you to everybody that's been involved. We will continue this litany of thank yous for just a moment longer. Do we have the last slide with our contact details for World Leisure, the Leisure Management Special Interest Group, Sesc, and whatnot? And if so, can we put that on the screen? I just finished with a few closing remarks. And if we don't have it, that's fine. I'm going to continue on. So the webinar has been recorded. We'll let registered participants know when the YouTube session is available. So you can go back to it, you can see things, you can deal with it, and hopefully you'll have the contact details to be able to proceed and make further contact. Please share the link with this with your colleagues who may be interested. I know there's many places in the world that is not a convenient time, and we found with our first webinar that there were many more people that came and viewed the YouTube video than actually joined the webinar. So we're hoping that this webinar series from the Leisure Management Special Interest Group will become a resource that people can call upon with their own program development, with our colleagues who are running courses and providing education can use as a resource. Thank you to those of you that have joined our webinar today and those of you that have asked questions and made comments. Special thanks to the technical team at Sesc. You've done a great job. Everything's run very smoothly. The translators, you're wonderful. I don't know how you do it, but you know, this simultaneous translation is a great effort, and we certainly, your help enables us to reach people who don't have English as their first language. Maria and Isabel in the World Leisure Secretariat helped to organize and coordinate a lot of these things. Patricia and Luis from Sesc in helping to plan the webinar program. Joanne and Bramante, who collaborate with me as we develop and deliver the LMC, the Leisure Management Special Interest Group activities. Extra special thanks to Leonardo Cálix for his willingness to share his insights about Sesc Verão. It is wonderful to have leisure colleagues who are willing to contribute their expertise to help meet the World Leisure Organization's mission of sharing leisure's capacity as a central force to enhance the human condition. This is a great effort from everybody involved, and we really appreciate it. I wish everyone a happy and successful World Leisure Day. Make the most of that quality of life. Thank you.